Now that the season 2 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime has ended, I think this is the perfect time to go over the story arcs that happens after the conclusion of the Walpurgis meeting between the Demon Lords. That's why in today's video, I'll be giving a summary of Chapter 1 of Volume 7 of the light novel, so expect a major spoiler warning for this if you don't want to know what happens afterwards. And I'll also be leaving a link down below for anyone that wants to read the full story for themselves. Additionally, if you want more light novel summaries like this, you can tell me in the comments down below or even liking the video so I know you guys want to see more. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and clicking on the notification bell for more future videos.
こうして俺は8人の魔王オクタグラムの一人となった。
Now to start, let's recap what happened at the last episode of Season 2. Clayman was defeated and consumed by Rimuru while Carrion and Frey had stepped down as Demon Lords. So with 8 members left, Rimuru was tasked with giving them a new name and they are now known as the 8-star Demon Lords or the Octagram. After that, Walpurgis continued with a feast prepared by Misery and Rain because according to Ramirez, the original purpose of Walpurgis was mainly for the Demon Lords to exchange information and just hang out. But not all the Demon Lords stayed for the meal as Leon Cromwell and Luminous Valentine had returned to their domain. The meal then went accordingly and Rimuru even shared some of the brandy made by Tempest to show just how beneficial it would be to work with them in the future. After the meal finished, Rimuru decided to return back to Tempest where he was then greeted with a small welcoming party prepared by Diablo and Rigurd. The entire town was ready to celebrate, but because Benimaru and the others still haven't returned from their mission, the full celebration was held off. Rigurd then suggested for Rimuru to first go relax and wait for their return, so he gladly accepted and went to enjoy the hot spring. As Rimuru was sitting on Shion's lap enjoying the food prepared by Haruna in the hot spring, Diablo was asked about the situation with the Falmouth mission, so he proceeded to give his full report. The first topic in Diablo's report was that he had to restore the Archbishop Rahim and the court magician Razan to their original form after Shion had turned them into deformed clumps of meat. He also stated that using his unique skill Tempter, a skill that mentally restricts the target and completely limiting their free will, he had turned the 3 prisoners into his willing servants, and with that, his plans for the Falmouth Kingdom would be set into motion. Moving over to what happened in the Falmouth Kingdom, Razan and Rahim returned to the castle with a box containing the body of the deformed king Admarus. It caused the castle to erupt into chaos and panic after everyone saw the sight of the deformed pile of meat that was the king. Then they scrambled to gather the mages left inside the palace and even summoned high priests from the Western Saint Church to see if they are able to restore the king, but nothing worked. When things had finally settled down in the castle, the minister and nobles began questioning Razan about the king and what had happened to the army that was sent to Tempest. So Razan had to explain the situation to everyone using the script given to him by Diablo. He first explained how the hero Yom has gone to negotiate with the monster ruler for a cure to restore King Admarus, and second was what has happened to the Falmouth army and why their battle with the monster nation had awakened the storm dragon Valdora. Of course, when they heard the name Valdora, panic erupted again, but Marquis Mueller, one of the people working with Diablo, shouted to quiet down the nobles. Razan then continued the explanation on how the resurrected Storm Dragon caused the army to disappear, leading everyone to believe that the army was used as a sacrifice by the dragon. But as we all know, this was just a story fabricated by Rimuru to manipulate the beliefs of the minister and nobles of the Falmouth Kingdom. As Razan finished his explanation, Yom and his party entered the throne room just as planned. The ones accompanying him are his advisor Miran, bodyguard Grucius, and secretary Romal the Mage, while Diablo, dressed in a neat butler outfit, is the last one to enter. Now, although Razan had mentioned Yom has the medicine to save the king, the ministers still looked down on him because of his commoner status, which was why he was quickly reprimanded by one of them. Fearing Diablo would be provoked by this, Razan quickly stepped in as a mediator to explain how Yom and his party were the ones responsible for saving him, the Archbishop, and the king. Of course, Razan was known as the strongest in the Falmouth Kingdom, so there were a lot of skeptics, but Rahim soon stepped in to back up his story. When Diablo gave them the signal to proceed, Rahim and Razan started to explain how Rimuru worked with the Dryads to negotiate with Valdora and stop his rampage. Obviously, this was all fabricated as well by Diablo to make the nobles believe that they had made an enemy with someone who was capable of winning over the Dryads and even Valdora. After their explanation, Yom finally spoke up again to reinforce the idea that Rimuru is someone reasonable, but he was quickly interrupted by one of the nobles, Lord Carlos. But Razan was quick to stop the rude and arrogant behavior of Lord Carlos so they wouldn't incur the wrath of Diablo. When things quiet down, Razan, Rahim and Yom took turns speaking, while Marquis Mueller and Earl Helman frequently intervened to keep things well in hand and to convince the ministers to work with Tempest. They soon reached the conclusion that it was best to enter peaceful negotiation with the Tempest Federation, and that was when Diablo stepped in to introduce himself. His elegant demeanor and speech shocked the nobles, and even the guards who were protecting the kings were paralyzed by the ominous aura he gave off. He kept moving towards the box that King Amarus was inside of and took out a full recovery potions from his pocket. He proceeded to pour the potion on the deformed king while he secretly undid the curse placed onto the king by Shion, making it look like the king was healed by the potion. In an instant, the king was returned back to his human form, much to the surprise of all the doctors and sorcerers present in the room. He even took the chance to promote the full potion, knowing how vital it is to the economy of Tempest. That said, Diablo quickly shifted back to his dramatic play and gave the signal to the king. He spoke up and welcomed Diablo as a representative of Tempest, and with that, Diablo begins to deliver the message and demands from Rimuru to the king. The message was that the Falmouth Kingdom was given only 1 week to consider one of the 3 conditions offered by Tempest. The first one was for the king to abdicate the throne and pay reparations of 10,000 star gold coins. The second one was for the Falmouth Kingdom to become a vassal state of the Tempest Federation, and third was for the war to continue and their nation would be burned to the ground. After he delivered the message, Diablo left and the king scrambled to have all the nobles of the Falmouth Kingdom to convene for a royal parliament. But before the royal parliament, the king had held a separate meeting with the ministers and nobles that were already present to get everyone on the same page before the actual meeting. However, the king already knew about Diablo's plan to have them choose option 1 and eventually cause a civil war to break out, but he wanted to just share his true feelings on the matter to everyone present. Seeing the king's conviction, everyone decided it was in their best interest to work together and think of a better solution, so their discussion continued long into the night, and Yom and his party were even invited to serve as advisors. With that, we now return to Tempest, where Diablo finishes his report to Rimuru on the situation in Falmouth, but Rimuru was still confused about his plans, so he outlined his plans to Rimuru and that he predicted Falmouth would likely choose option 1 because they could just find a scapegoat, have the scapegoat pay the amount and later cut ties with them. They can easily push all the responsibilities onto the scapegoat and argue that they did their part and pretend like nothing has happened. That's why Diablo had set the amount of reparations to be 10,000 star gold coins, because it was an absurd amount that no nation would be able to pay. So for context, a copper coin has the same value as a dollar, 1 silver coin is around $100, a gold coin is $10,000, and 1 star gold coin is equivalent to $1 million, meaning that Diablo had demanded $10 billion in reparations. That said, he never thought that Falmouth could gather 10,000 star gold coins, but he does expect that Tempest could at least get 1,000 star gold coins as reparations instead. The reasoning behind it is that star gold coins don't really serve much purpose other than being securities, because their exchange rate would be too large, and gold coins are usually the ones used by nations for their expenses. Additionally, because Rimuru told Diablo about the concept of economy, he understood that the economy of this world was still new and knew that Rimuru wanted to dominate it, so he wanted to help accumulate as much wealth as possible for Tempest before that change comes. Also, thanks to his unique skill tempter, Diablo knew King Amarus was prepared to abdicate his throne, and for this reason, the noble faction would definitely make him into the scapegoat. This of course would be perfect for them since they can have Yom and his party come in to assist King Amarus with the backing of Tempest to defeat the nobles. Yom will then be seen as a hero who saved the old administration and give him the perfect reason to take control of the throne. So going back to Falmouth again, this time at the Royal Parliament, everything was going according to Diablo's plan. King Amarus announces he has accepted the first condition given by the Tempest Federation. He will abdicate his throne and they will pay 10,000 star gold coins. The nobles began complaining, and their complaints soon turned into sentiments for continuing the war, and soon they started to ask the king to take all the responsibility and pay the reparations himself. Even the king's brother Edward spoke out and wanted to make him into a scapegoat, but the entire room fell into silence when the king accepted their claims. But the silence didn't last long when Earl Helman delivered reports about Blue Moon and the Nation Dragon, condemning the actions of the Falmouth Kingdom. However, the bombshells didn't stop as a soldier rushed into the room to deliver the news that the ruler of the Tempest Federation has declared himself as a demon lord. The nobles started to feel relieved and assumed that the other demon lords would now take action, but when the soldier continued to report that demon lord claimant was defeated by Rimuru and that he's now part of the new octagram, their relief soon turned into despair. King Amarus then spoke up again and reminded them of how dangerous Rimuru is, and reaffirmed his abdication of the throne while announcing that his successor would be his brother Edward. Delighted to finally have control of the throne, Edward now thinks he will be able to trick Rimuru, putting all the blame onto King Amarus and saving Falmouth. But he was unaware that he was simply another pawn in this grander play. The meeting proceeded smoothly with the nobles thinking that they have won because Edward has now taken the throne. They also agreed to accept the peace treaty with the Tempest Federation, but they plan to betray them later and gather another force to fight against Tempest. Now, although the Tempest Federation has essentially been recognized by Falmouth as a country, they were still not part of the Council of the West, so if Falmouth broke their promises, there wouldn't really be any judicial intervention. However, it's still dangerous to go against Rimuru because it has now been proven that the Tempest Federation possesses the military might, and adding the fact that the Storm Dragon Valdora is on his side, Rimuru has become an existence that no one dares to oppose. And just like that, Phase 1 of the Falmouth Kingdom takeover concluded without any issues, and it is all unfolding according to Diablo's plan. So yeah, that was roughly what happened in Chapter 1, Volume 7. If you want to read the full chapter, I'll leave a link down below. Also feel free to share your thoughts on the chapter in the comments and liking the video to let me know if you want to see Chapter 2 or more light novel summaries in the future. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hitting that notification bell for more tensura content. Thanks for watching and stay safe everyone.